Well, all your Chuck Berry and Jimmy Page, those riffs are going to go away pretty quick. And you're going to be forced to do things that come from you. And that's how you can develop a uniqueness on the instrument. Okay, enough of that. Next question.
Okay, we've got, when you first started playing guitar, who were your influences? And did you ever get any insults about your playing from other kids?
Any what?
Insults? About your playing from other kids, yeah.
Yes. When I was growing up, I grew up in the 70s. Well, I was a teenager in the 70s. It was a great time for music then. There was bands like, Led Zeppelin. Hendrix, of course, was a big influence. And Ritchie Blackmore, and Brian May. And all those really great rock guitar players and progressive players of the 70s, I always felt they really played, They did great stuff. I wasn't into jazz, I wasn't into classical music. I didn't really like the blues. I like it now, but back then to me it just sounded simple, and I didn't understand it, Imagine that. I understood Zappa's music, but I didn't understand the blues. Go figure. But, so that was, kind of the stuff that I was listening to. Was I ever insulted? I'm probably the most criticized guitar player in the world. There was a period there, like in the 90s, where I could not open a guitar magazine and, not read hate mail about me. So, yeah, well, trends change, and when you really are a powerful entity with this, where, maybe an hour tape that would go like, and then I'd say major 7, it's a tritone, and, now I know every interval, I can tell you chords, how they're stacked, and all this stuff, but all of that was really so that when I hear something in my head, I know what to play. It's invaluable. It's what it's all about. And some people can do it very naturally, and some people just do what their fingers are used to doing, which is scales and riffs and stuff. And after a while, it might be fascinating, but it gets cold, because really what we respond to is the humanity that's in what we hear. And that has to come from a person, and that has to come from what they're hearing in their head. So it's hard work to develop your ears, but it's constantly neglected. And I would recommend that it's a very valuable, vital part of the equation of becoming an expressive, emotional player.
Okay, the next one here, it says, you're often quoted as having gone through a period of practicing the guitar for between 10 to 15 hours a day. How old were you when you did this? And how did you find the time to fit it into your day? I assume there was plumbing visits at some point. I'm sure there's plumbing visits at some point in the day.
Let me see, how old was I when I did it? 46. No, when I was younger, I used to practice a real lot. I just, not nearly as much as my kids play video games, though. Just kidding. I had school and all these other things, but I was very anal and neurotic about my practice regime. It was kind of like, I don't even know if it was very healthy. But I only wanted to play the instrument. Everything else in life for me was a distraction and a misery. I was terrible at everything else. I made a terrible boyfriend, I didn't really know how to have a relationship because everything was about the guitar. And maybe it was a form of escape, I don't know, but I really enjoyed playing it. And it was, when you can't do something and you employ your discipline and your focus, and then you can do it, you get a sense of dignity. And that activity can become addictive because playing just became an addiction. I had to feel like I was accomplishing something. And that's human nature, to have to accomplish something, right? And what we're here for, basically, it seems. So I did play a lot and I focused a lot, but I did do other things. You know, I went out with my friends on the weekend and caused a lot of trouble. And these days, there's a lot, a lot of other things. If you're young and you've got time, play as much as you can if you like, because later on, when reality sets in, there's all the other obligations. Your time to just sit and play can get compromised. But it's okay because I don't need to sit around and do exercises and stuff anymore. So these days, I may not play for a while, for a stretch, because I'm working on something else or whatever. But when it comes time to prepare for a tour, or if I got to play something, I do put a lot of time back in on the instrument.
And you put a lot of time in it, and it's the same as we were saying earlier. You practice the same sort of thing as you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, but it goes into different realms. It's not. Yeah.
I mean, this next one's very, very common. It says, "Hi Steve, is there a special technique that would improve the speed of my playing?" Is there a special technique that would improve the speed of my playing?
A special technique that would improve the speed? Yeah, just play faster. Move the metronome up.
I didn't write his questions. The guitar bar. How many guitar bar readers?
Actually, I can give you some good advice on that. If you want to play really fast, it's simple. Start really slow. Start really, really slow. And work on every single element of what you're doing and think about it. The guitar is such an interesting instrument, and it's such an expressive one because every time you hit a note, it's different. Nobody can hit the same note the same way, And just hitting one note, there's so many things that you can do with it. The way that you hit it here with your pick will determine a lot about tone. People say tone is in the amp, tone is in your head, it's in your fingers, And I could tell you another Frank Zappa story. I remember after I was good at learning all this crazy music, but I didn't really have a great tone. And I remember after the first gig I did with Frank, I was having breakfast with him the next day, and I said, "So what do you think?" And he says, "Well, Steve," or Sport, he used to call me Sport, Sport, you're actually a very good guitar player, but your tone sounds like an electric ham sandwich." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? I've got the Strat, I've got the Marshall," and he said, "The tone is in your head." And I remember once I was sitting in my studio, and I was recording something I was playing, and Edward Van Halen came in, because we were friends. And we're just talking, and I was recording, and I had my guitar with my amp. It sounded like me. And we're talking, and he was making a joke about something, and he wanted to demonstrate, so he picks up the guitar and he starts playing. And I'm listening, I'm going, "Holy shit, that's Edward Van Halen." It sounded like him. It sounded exactly like him, and I'm listening and thinking, that's my amp, my guitar, but it sounds like him, because it's his fingers. And, so the way that you attack a note, with its tone and everything, is going to be, the tone is determined. So, if you want to play fast, you got to start off really slow and perfect. And if you have a riff that, goes a certain way, I don't know, I'm just using a stupid example. I would take that and I'd make an exercise out of it, And as I did it, I'd have a list of things that I wanted it to make me feel. Are all the notes clean? If that's what I wanted. I had to work very, very hard at being even a remotely clean player because I'm tremendously reckless and sloppy. You should see my sock drawer. Has it got the tone that I want? Does it have the emotional context? Am I angry when I'm, or do I want it to sound like, what? I don't know, so then I'll think of that, and then eventually, and I'll do it with a lot of focus until it sounds just right. And it might just mean sitting there and going, okay, so I just made a little mistake, so it's like, okay.